Is love enough to keep a relationship or marriage together? Well, we're going to answer that question.
Let's go. Asteroid of fear.
Welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast, and it is Unfiltered Friday here with Richard, me, the host. I'm a little nervous here, shaking my leg. Try not to be, but yeah, I still get a little nervous on the mic. 160 something episodes in. I think I have 160 released, but I have some recorded that haven't been released yet. So, yeah. Which reminds me, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe if you're a regular listener. And even if you're not, go ahead and subscribe. Why not? Just a reminder to come back and give a listen. That's what I often do. If I find something I like, I'll follow the podcast, and when I get around to listening, we'll give it a whirl, and then I go back and unfollow as needed. I kind of do this thing where I'll have tons of podcasts that I'm following, and then I only listen to a certain set of them, or maybe I want an episode, and then I'll go and unfollow, delete, whatever you want to call it. But I have kind of like a core set that I don't deviate from while I'm Ubering and or healing, I guess you could call it. Things that have been part of my last 2 to 3 year journey of quitting alcohol, trying to get my mental health on track, um, you know, figuring out everything. I guess when I got laid off 5 years ago, it was kind of like the caboose of my train just came and hit me in the ass and smashed the rest of the train into a brick wall, and here we are picking up the pieces, trying to reassemble the locomotive so we can get back on the track and get trucking, get to the next destination. That's right. So let's talk about love. Why do I want to talk about love? And is it enough? Um, well, for starters, I've been with my wife for 19 years. We've been married almost 13, coming up December 22nd, but we've been together 19 years. So, is love enough? um, I would say no. I would say it's the foundation. Almost like a house or a building, love is the foundation, I guess, which everything has been built on. And yeah, I don't even know how long it took for us to love each other, how long it took to build that foundation. But it was kind of over time. And, ours has been kind of an interesting journey, and, but yeah, I don't know. We had gotten together, we broke up, and I actually relocated elsewhere. And so we spent some time apart. And then eventually she and her husband had separated, and we'd had our time apart and decided that we wanted to be together. We didn't want to be apart. And she had never lived anywhere else and decided that she would come live a little further away than where we met. A couple hours. But, you know, what that did was I had a roommate at the time, my best friend Andrew, and he was working at Schlitterbahn. We lived in corporate housing, and when he left Schlitterbahn, we and he relocated to Dallas. We had to move out of the Schlitterbahn housing, and a week later, we found ourselves in Austin, where we spent 9 years. And I think it was during that 9 years where we kind of built the foundation. I would say the first part of it was when we had to relocate. Um, Man, I don't know how we did it job wise. I cannot remember, but I had gotten a job at a country club, and I don't know what she did, but we went through these series of I worked at a country club. She had a few jobs here and there. She did like some gift wrapping at J.C. Penney during the holidays. So that's coming up. Any people who need ideas for extra income. Um, she cleaned like this long stay hotel kind of place that was like two or three buildings over, and our dog Peanut escaped to one time and was running through the parking lots. What else did we do? All kinds of stuff, but I worked at an MMA training center. I worked for the IRS. Uh, and then we both ended up in healthcare, working for Ascension or Seton if you're in the ATX area. But until then, it was kind of, and we've always done that. Like sometimes she's been the breadwinner, sometimes I've been the breadwinner. Sometimes I've had a job and she hasn't, and vice versa. She's had a job and I haven't. But we've always kind of made that work together because I often found that when I didn't have a job and she had a job, I was often in the process of kind of leveling up, and therefore my next job would be bigger as a provider, and it would take some off of her. And once we both got to Ascension, that was kind of where we both made good money, you know, considerably, like relatively speaking, for our jobs, the area, the time, and all that. I mean, you know, we eventually got to where we could have a little fun and all that, but, we weren't rich by any means. And, but that was some of our most stable time period, and that was right before our youngest daughter was born, Sophie, who is now 11. So, and kind of the reason I bring that up is as I take you through this, you'll we'll get to kind of where we are now and why it's important now. But yeah, we spent those Austin years just really building our relationship. Um, I'm sure we had our tiffs like everyone else, and we had some moments in there I think where we had opportunities to call it quits, but decided not to. And I don't know why. Is it love? I think both her and I are trauma bonded in a way. How we met, kind of both coming out of situations. We both have childhood trauma. Um, but yeah, and so our love is, it's definitely different level, I would say. But yeah, we had opportunities in that time, and um, every outside influence from family members to, when you have exes and kids and shared custodies and this and that, the other. I mean, it gets challenging, challenging to say the least. But we've made it work. And yeah, I'm proud of that. Because I think on last Unfiltered Friday, I talked about instead of looking at people's job resumes, like, but you look at like their relationship. I mean, us being together that long, what that says is that either we're stupid and dumb, too dumb to quit, or we love each other and we're willing to work through it and we don't call it quits when shit gets tough. So she threw me my 30th birthday party. So I was 29 when we met. I'm now 49. Just for a little context there. She threw me my dirty 30. But I'm bringing that up because I guess, the different years have brought different challenges. While we were building in our young to mid 30s, everything was good. And then we're like you know, because our other two children belong to her. They have a different dad. We met when they were 2 and 3. They're now 22 and 21. And me being an only child, my wife was like, "You need to have your own child. Somebody needs to take care of you when you get old." I said, "Well, I'm trading you in for something 20 years younger anyway, when I'm 80 or 90." And yeah, that was a joke. You can laugh. I can't remember if she did. She probably gave me some look and gave me a little slap. I think we were on the beach. And I said, "That's what they paid nurses for, doctors and nurses." Um, but she's like, you need somebody to take care of you. You don't want to die alone. And, I think about that often now as we go back to thinking about Buck, and how his children were elsewhere. And, it, but Buck was 97. So his oldest or their youngest children were far away. They were older. I mean, some of his kids were in their 70s, maybe. Yeah. So it's not like they could be there 24/7 and provide the same level of care, lifting, transferring. I mean, yeah, it was a lot of work. Um, but that kind of showed my daughter, and it kind of showed me what my wife was talking about. And, my wife's got her own story, and that's for her to tell, if ever, if she ever wants to. I'm not here to disclose anything, but she has her own story, and this impacts the way she loves and what's important to her, children and family, creating a family, things that are hers. And I love that about her. But that's why I connect with her, because as a child, I had family, but they were the family that didn't talk much. They didn't say I love you and this and that the other. My wife's situation was a little bit different, and but that's why being with her, that kind of a person that values love and family, is important to me. I mean, you have to think, when people choose partners, it's like, I don't even know. I mean, her and I, like, we didn't necessarily like each other. We didn't necessarily get along when we first met. Fun fact, we were each other's secret Santa before we ever dated. um, she, but it, I don't know. It was this weird, both of us coming out of difficult situations and relationships. We somehow found each other, leaned on each other, and whether it started off as something physical and became emotional, I don't know. It, the first time she came over, I made her sleep on the couch, and I slept in my room. Like, we weren't about that at that time, Um, because I think she was still in the process of separating, and, she just needed a place to crash. And yeah, so it wasn't like that. And I hope everyone who knows about us at that time, who thought it was something that it wasn't. I have no reason to lie. So, but yeah, because I was coming out of a bad relationship, and I sure as hell didn't want anything. And she was in the process of separation. She didn't really want anything. And so we were kind of just hanging out, and she sleep on the couch. And I don't know, we went on kind of like a little double date. Shout out Romulus, if you're listening, if you ever hear this. And I I don't know if it was a double date. We just kind of call it around that. And at some point it was no longer, you don't have to sleep on the couch. And there we were. That's how. We got a little Friday after next. First, we started rapping, and that's how it happened. But yeah, and since then, we've kind of been building. But Austin was definitely one of my favorite times of our relationship. And there's things about now I enjoy. It's different, but that was a super crucial time for us. Um, Two people in a new place, not knowing anything because we were in New Braunfels only for maybe a month. And then it was like, I heard Austin's supposed to be cool. And that's where I met Layla. Shout out Layla. We've been friends for a long time. Maybe 2006. Man, we met at the Hills Country Club. We had our interviews same day. And then we ended up carpooling and she came to our wedding, I think. We went to hers. And, but yeah, it was such I'm grateful for that job. The Hills Country Club, shout out to Lakeway and the Popos. If you ain't had a ticket in Lakeway yet, then you just ain't living. You ain't been there. And I remember the day I got my ticket, fucking made us late for shift. And I remember he pulled us over. I had my black Jetta at the time, me and Layla there, and right at the front of the hills or Flint Rock Falls. We were going somewhere, and I had never been stung by a bee. And there was a damn bee when I rolled down the window, and he's asking all the stuff, like trying to get in. But yeah, that time, us being in a new city and kind of really making our life there. And I think had, we not had Sophie because we were both in healthcare at that time and stable, and we had a house out towards Bastrop. We were renting and out by the Circuit of the Americas. Man, we should have bought that and kept it. It's probably worth a pretty penny right now, especially with Taylor Sheridan putting some film shit out in Bastrop and Coda's gotten so much bigger. I mean, yeah, right off of Wolf Lane. But we were at a stable point, and like I said, she's like, you're an only child, and we'd been together 6, 7 years at that point, and I didn't necessarily want to bring the law into it, but her thing was like, I don't want to have to be explaining to a kid like common law marriage, why we have different last names, blah blah blah, because my wife comes from a more traditional family, and so we got married. We made it official. Yeah, we brought the law into it. But we also brought God into it. How about that? Yeah. And thank you, Rita and Charles, for marrying us. Rita, if you're listening, and Charles, I think they're in Corpus now, but I worked with Rita, and her husband happened to be a pastor. And yeah, we got married. We brought God into it. And that definitely makes it more difficult if you want to get divorced, if you're thinking about separating, I guess. Oh, man. But, you know, we got married and we had Sophie, and then it was time for, like, hey, let's have some familial support and start applying to jobs either closer to her parents or my parents. And especially me being an only child, my mom be a grandma. And I wasn't talking to my dad at that time. He met my daughter, I think, when she was 3, maybe, or 4. But we, you know, we were working. We had Sophie. I think at that time, I had also started grad school because I was in this position where it had no vertical or lateral movement. And I was like, okay, like, I needed growth. I needed a challenge. And Gabby's like, well, why don't you go to graduate school? And I was like, I really don't want to go to graduate school. But at that time, my mom happened to be working with somebody who was in this graduate program, like this executive education one, and where it was 15 months maybe, and you go, you do an intense week, and you have one 12-hour day of classes. It's pretty intense with your cohort. And so I would travel from Austin to Tyler, UT Tyler, and we had people from Arkansas, and we would have our classes together for a week. You stay in a hotel, in the hotel conference room. You have classes, and then that way you're familiar with everybody. And then when you get ready to do group projects and stuff, you know each other. And then you go back and finish out the rest of the semester online via Zoom and whatnot. So I was doing that and applying for jobs closer and ended up getting a job back where I'm from in Tyler. So that was going to make school a little bit better. And so we got 1 year old. I'm going from a senior clerk to a clinic manager, practice manager, whatever you want to call it, because I already had my bachelor's. I'm in a master's program, going back to the work for the hospital I was born at. And, oh man, God, I was just talking about this today. So, newborn, relocation, new job, and graduate school. That was a lot. A whole bunch. Being a new leader, especially when, like, a clinic, nobody ever really likes the new leader, especially if you're replacing somebody else. Oh, yeah, well, that's a whole other story, actually. I actually initially got hired to work at a clinic that was located in a hospital, but uh, what story behind that? Excuse me, a pause for the cause or the hydration there. Wash down the tic tac, little ASMR. So they put me at this place, and if you're a listener, if you've been a listener, you know I got a mouth. I can be an asshole, a dickhead. Um, Depending on what it is, I can step over lines and be okay with it, depending if it's for the good, and or I can be a stickler for policy if it's for the good. And I was a stickler for policy. I was basically a pawn in a big chess game between vice presidents of a healthcare system, between hospitals and clinics that are differently owned and differently managed. And when the clinic is located in the hospital, the CEO of the hospital thinks he runs it. And, the clinic side actually has their own CEO, their own VPs, their own whatever. And it came down to fit testing. And he's like, you're going to get fit tested. And I said, no, we're not. Because the policy says. Because if somebody comes in, they're going to isolation anyway. We're in a hospital. We don't need to be fit tested. If they break the barrier of the front door and they require a pressurized room, they're never going to make it to the clinic. So it doesn't really make a fuck. And we went to battle and we went to battle and nobody got fit tested. And my director and VP, they took me out to lunch on a Thursday. Nice place. I had the steak frites from Currents. It was delicious. And basically told me that I was being transferred to a different clinic, which was kind of cool because it was like 10 minutes from my house. And that was a Thursday. And I said, when is this? They said, Monday. Yeah. Went in the next day, and all the doctors were like, even though some of them kind of yelled at me before, old Billy Dan, fire in his eyes. No shit, like this fireplace, if you're a watcher. And he was like, oh, this came from way high up. We actually liked you because I was sticking up for the clinic. I wasn't, allowing the hospital CEO to try and manipulate and have his way. And, because this is a small town, and at the good old boys club, and, it, it was way racist back in the day. Probably slightly still is. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, they don't like brown people too much. Even my shade. Unless they need their lawn cut. That's a joke. And I'm Mexican, so I can say it. I'm actually Mexicant. I got asthma. I can't mow. I'll have an asthma attack. For real. But yeah, so I ended up getting transferred because of that. Because of the VPs warring it out. I didn't realize it at the time. I'm in there, because I'm a do-gooder at heart. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll do my best. I won't let you down. And they knew that. They knew I wasn't gonna budge. And so yeah, they kicked me the fuck out and sent me elsewhere, which was fine. I'm actually very grateful for it. But what that meant though was the clinic I was going to and ended up at, they had just gotten another manager that they liked, and now they're being told they're stuck with me. So to say challenging is an understatement. So all that's going on. Meanwhile, you know, I'm being transferred. I'm in grad school. I got the 1 year old. So much going on. Um, and 15 months later, I walk, which my master's degree was the only one I walked for. I graduated high school a year early. Didn't walk. Didn't walk for my 4 year. Because I don't know. Like I'm not that kind of person. Like, hey, look at me. Look at what I did. Which seems so odd given the fact I have a podcast with a visual element. And you're like, yeah, you sure you don't want attention? No, I'm sure. I kind of shy away from it. I don't necessarily like the spotlight. But I walked because my grandfather wanted to go. I think my mom went. My daughter, I don't know if she was 2 at the time. And my wife, of course, she was proud of me for getting my master's degree. And, my daughter was there, whether or not she remembers, but we have pictures and she knows. And, I was just telling somebody that's the importance of it. People, it's like, what's the value of education, especially nowadays with ChatGPT and all this other stuff? Well, the value of that education for me was it showed me what I was capable of when I want something and it's difficult, and all the sacrifices I had to make to get that piece of paper to walk across that stage. 5 a.m. mornings, doing homework before school. I mean, before work, working all day, doing homework after, working on Zoom projects with other people in different states and shit. Um, Yeah, till 11, 12 at night. Stuff like that. And spending every Saturday, my Saturday ritual was I'd wake up, I'd go to Rudy's, I'd get two brisket tacos, and I would go to the UT Tyler Library, and I would be there till it closed. And then we would meet when my mom was still married. We'd meet at her and her ex-husband's house and spend time um, with the grandparents, spend time with the grandbaby, give us a little break. Or, sometimes they'd watch her and my wife and I could go out to dinner or something. But yeah, and Sunday was kind of the same, was, a lot. And then, oh, yeah, yeah, trying to get my feet under me as a manager. And I can't remember when it was. I had to fire somebody who did our end of day and end of month reconciliation. And because I had to fire her, they already didn't like me. Then everybody there was like, nobody would help me. Nobody would teach me how to do like the end of day, end of month reconciliations for financials because they were all butt hurt, you know. I mean, I can't help if, you know, if one employee threatens another or does something I can't control, I mean, and I have to fucking fire them, then that's not my fault. Like, how am I the bad guy in this? So, but yeah, they wouldn't help me, and there was people there, and you know who you are. And if you didn't want to help because you were butthurt, I forgive you. It's okay. I still like you. Uh, but this is where my mother comes in, and my mom she's worked at the hospital I was born at since I was 10 years old, and within that system, doesn't anymore, but works for a different system, the competing system, the better system, maybe better colors anyway, 100%. And you know how I feel about my old system, the wolves of Wall Street hiding behind a mission statement. So that's besides the point. But she was very well connected, and with some of the people who, the same graduate program I was in, she knew people from before because she had worked for them and help them help cover shifts. And so one of those managers, shout out Kenneth, he one of his peeps showed me how to do it all. But then once I got it all set up, some weekends or some nights, and I would do this because it was easier. Well, we had an urgent care that was 7 days a week, but I could get certain things done when primary care side wasn't open because you didn't have as many employees, nobody there to bother you. So I'd go to my office on the weekends and I shit you not, fucking stacks of financials. And I'd have to go through them and I'd get the report set up. And then you're like, mother effer, like the report still got to run. So it's not going to be ready till tomorrow. And yeah, it was a whole fucking deal. And so having to do all that, uh, some very super challenging times. But I got through them like a G. How? My wife. My wife. Her love, her encouragement, her support. She wanted me to get a master's. She, it was important for her, like as a mother to our child, all that, to see that kind of stuff. And I could financially support us both if she didn't have to work. Um, but yeah, and I know that's not the case for everyone, but the key word is support. She's the one that recommended it. And kind of, she didn't get the podcast at first. until there was like a point. It's like, hey, babe, I'm still the same guy who got the master's degree, who did all that shit. Like, that's still me. That's still the inside of me. Only now I want to do it for podcasting. And I've been at it for 2 years and I've improved quite a bit. I'm still not there, but I think about like where was I at 2 years in healthcare? I was still a baby, and I have to tell my wife that. I go, hey, like I'm Ubering on the side. I do paid studies, we do some home healthcare type stuff. But I try to keep it flexible, not back in that corporate thing. And seems like it's never going to happen sometimes. It's like, oh, it takes so long, but you have to kind of break things down and put them into perspective and go, where were you at 2 years? Okay. Now, there's people who are catch on and just fucking take off. Maybe they were successful at something else before and they have a big, a good talking point. But, you know, my podcast is not that. I'm not some dude who got rich doing something else or had some sort of product or service business and, that was successful. And now I just started a podcast to get along to promote that. What you've seen, if you go back and you listen to this podcast as a whole, it's like a series, like a docu series. You can listen everything from me starting to now, how the episodes have changed, how they've, whether it's my speaking, engagement, the set, the quality, the topics, how comfortable I am, which was funny because I was nervous at the beginning of this episode 161, I believe. And yeah, I'm that same guy. I want to build something, but you look at that and you're seeing me like figure out things like going from being laid off to quitting alcohol to discovering what's important to me as a man, um, as an individual, and for my family. I mean, and then you hear all the interviews that I've talked to people about those kinds of things. What is important? Life. And so, how does this all tie in? It's like, well, you're kind of watching something build in real time, and we're at the beginning. 2 years is not very long on a continuum. It's a baby business. And who knows how it's going to shift and change as it progresses. But better is always the key. And topics of value, adding value, that's what I want. And you're going to watch me figure it out in real time and do it in real time. And I hope you're part of the journey and I hope you enjoy it. And I want you to look at it like that of going, wow, we're watching something be built in real time and enjoy every part of it. Like to me, this is fun. Um, yeah, this is one of the favorite parts of my day. I'll go into coaching after this since it is technically Thursday, but and then my least favorite part of all the other shit I got to do with it to get it to release at midnight, that's the less fun part. But anyhow, how does this all relate to love and is it enough? Yeah, I mean, it I was able to do all that because of my wife's support. And the podcast, there's a point where it changed and when my wife started supporting it. When I told her I'm the same guy, I just want something different because I want a bigger reach. I want to help more people. And I want for her and I to have a different life than what corporate might provide. A little more freedom, if you will. I mean, her dad's an entrepreneur, her brother's an entrepreneur. They work hard, but they have more say so. They're not answering to the man. And so that's something I'm working on as well. Um, but let's see. Daughter turns, she gets ready to go into Everything's kind of about that. And then at some point, my wife wants to go back to work when our daughter starts daycare and all that, because she's always worked, and some moms get bored, I guess, which is fine. I mean, and we did that for a while. And, I think everything was kind of rolling on trajectory. I guess, I mean, I had my work struggles and was always looking for promotion or wanting to advance, but it's super hard in the good old boy organization. I'm not saying there's favorites, but if you didn't go to the right school, you're not in the right circle. It's just not going to happen. And proof, there was a guy. He was like a director for fucking 18 years. He's a fucking G, Jerry Ashworth. He's the CEO of fucking Herman. He was a director for a long ass time. They would never promote him to VP. I don't know. Maybe he's just got too much charisma. He went to the same school I did, though. Or I went to the same school he did. Well, you can see me shift here. But, but anyway, the point is that he moved there and he's just fucking took off like a damn eagle. And they never would have gave him that shot because they like to all keep it to themselves. It's like, got to be in the circle. It's that whole, it's all political, basically, you know, to serve the interest of the people already in power and their constituents. And they just keep handing it down through the circle till it fucking breaks or something. I don't know. But I'm out of it. I don't want no part of it. And good luck to them. That's not my area of participation. But in the past 5 years, as you've watched this journey, um, there was a period in time where my wife was like, you need to go back to corporate. And I applied and even turned down some because it wasn't going to be good for us. I didn't want to take my daughter out of school and relocate her to Beeville, Texas to run the Garza unit, the medical unit there, which I could have. Um, and ultimately, we somehow ended up where she has her thing and we do some home health care and through a company. And we did Buck where we did live-in caregiving for 3.5 months, and that was a whole family thing. But everything we're doing is as a family, and we decide together. And it's only possible because as a family we decide together. But now our daughter's 11, and then I've had, man, where I thought I was depressed. And we've figured out it's anxiety from that accident of me being on the bus that ran over the girl when I was 7. And so, who sat in front of me? If you haven't listened to that, go back, or you might have to pay for it now. It's worth it though. So, the point is that we're in a totally different place. Our daughter's a different age. Um, a long time ago, I remember, we used to have these times before Sophie was born, and I've talked about that where like it didn't matter what you were doing as long as you were together. The person was the prize. And man, I've told that story of us at the library and we were so broke and we'd just go like get The Sopranos on DVD and whatever and just put the mattress in front of the TV in the living room and just be with each other all day, laying there, cuddling, watching movies and eating, and it was the best. Man, I love that time. And we still get to capture some moments every now and again when we have a day where we just sit at home and watch TV. It's so fulfilling. Um, but yeah, like anything else, I mean, me Ubering, side doing this, deciding not to go back to corporate. I mean, these are conversations. They're hard conversations. because the world tries to tell you one thing. And just like people thought we were crazy how I'm friends with her ex-husband, and I knew a long time ago it was about the kids. We had They were going to be part of each other's lives. We need to fucking make this work. So, and everybody be like, I don't know how you do it, and people look at us sideways, but that's the world, because people want you to be like them and think that everything needs to be divisive. No, it's about the benefit of the kids. But just like now, people, you have a master's, you're not using it. Why don't you go back to corporate? And we just have a very different life. We have some things and it works for us. But the idea is something bigger and better, more independent. That's what I'm working on. But again, only 2 years in. So, is love enough? No, but it's a foundation. And I think you need that foundation. It takes work, it takes hard conversations. Um, I would never be able to do this if we were butting heads at it. And we had a point where we were, and things weren't great. But thankfully, I'm able to articulate in a way and help her understand, like, look, I mean, this is what corporate demanded. This is what this demands. The pay's a little different. We take home, it's not far off. It's not, but it's enough. We have our needs met. Um, we have love and we have work to do, but it takes work and it's hard. But kind of the cool thing is we live in such a better age, and you know, we've had to kind of make this conscious decision of, since I discovered my trauma and the anxiety, I've needed my wife a lot more, and with that, we've kind of made this conscious, we have to be like, hey, like, you stop sitting over there on the recliner while I'm in bed watching TV. Come over here and be by me, and I even got mad one day because I was like, she was in the bed and on her phone. I'm like, get off the phone. Like, I want it to be us. Because back in the day, I thought about it. What was different? Well, we had flip phones. So there was really no IG and shit to look at, and we could be watching the movie or TV. But now everything is like, I'm watching TV, we're watching a program together, but she might be scrolling on the phone or a commercial. Is so easy to pick up. But yeah, really focusing in on that together. And then we downloaded, it's called the Paired app. Paired, reach out, please sponsor Men of the House podcast. Get men out there, couples out there working on this. But it's this kind of cool app, and it's got all kinds of categories, and you join it as a couple. I have it on my phone, you have it on your phone. And I guess the way you would play Wordle or whatever, those games you play with people, um, back and forth on the iPhone. But this is for couples and answering questions like, what moment could you play on repeat of your honeymoon or wedding? And it was interesting because, like, I put my answer, but I can't see her answer until she answers it, and she can't see my answer, vice versa. Like, you have to answer the question to see their answer. And so it's kind of neat to see, like, we pick some of the same things. They matched up. And I mean, they have intimate type things, and they have quizzes and uh, other things about compatibility, but it kind of opens a discussion. And, like, if I'm here and she's off at her job and doing stuff, it's like a back and forth, an unread message, and you can kind of, oh, well, let's see about this. And then when we're together, we can talk about it. Um, so it's fun. We've been doing that for about a week, and it's been enjoyable. But yeah, you have to make the effort. You have to try to get back to that place. And, as your kids grow up and they become more independent, and, we're not changing diapers and shit anymore, and don't have to get her ready for school. She does all her own stuff. So, yeah, it is almost like a reconnect, and it takes work, and you have to want to because it's so easy to get distracted with life, work, kids, job, everything, side things, family stuff. But here lately, we've been really making that effort of between like the hours of 8 and 10 p.m. I'm trying to be done with as much as possible. And even if I have to read a chapter in bed, or even if we're in bed kind of watching like Big Brother or The Challenge, I might bring my laptop over and make clips. But at least we're together. And then as soon as I'm done, I try to shut it and be present. So I highly recommend that app. But I have some group coaching to go to. So I'm going to hop off of this thing. But is love enough? I don't think it is. I think, like anything else, it's a strong foundation and you have to work at it. Is the love of podcasting enough to make it? No. I'm still paying to play. Nobody's reached out with the sponsorships. Nobody's sending me money yet. So, um, yeah, you have to love it to be doing it over 2 years and whatnot. And it requires a lot of work. And I have to get better. And there's still so much room for improvement. So marriage is very similar, or a relationship. And if you're looking for relationships and you're looking for marriage, because somebody is hot, not, no. Look for qualities. Um, is this person going to be willing to have the hard conversations when there's moments when you want to quit and you decide not to, whether you're married or not, you know? But we make it so easy to walk away. I mean, but trust me, it's like if you don't peel back the layers, have the hard conversations, and understand that you're almost like two 7-year olds, dealing with each other's traumas and whatnot. And if you can't work through that, you're just going to jump to the next person and be stuck in the same pattern. So you might as well have the hard conversations and see what it is about each other's wounds is irritating and causing the ruckus or friction in the relationship, and address it from there. Generally fights are these topical kind of symptom like things, and the root cause is really what needs to be addressed. So it takes some digging, and sometimes, like for us, like I have to physically be away. Sometimes I Uber or take a walk, and I need to break it down, like why I'm upset or something. If we're having a discussion, and go, what is it really about? Because initially, when you have an argument or something, it seems like it's about one thing, but it's really about something else. And you have to realize that. So it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of understanding. And so, yeah, when you're looking for someone, you need to look for somebody who's not going to fucking give up. Because, yeah, it's hard. But on the other hand, you get somebody to do life with, to share all the stuff with. And that's what makes it great. And the fact that she's not exactly like me, I don't know. I've yet to determine if that's a good or bad thing, but we kind of complement each other. We like some of the same stuff and we like a lot of different things. But she's everything I'm not, and I'm a lot of things that she's not. I got the masters, she doesn't. But her lovingness and character of how she is to other people and includes everybody and way beyond me. Let me just fucking say that. Yeah, I am. Mm, yeah, but
God knows what he's doing. And I trust that. And we brought him into it. Doesn't make it easier. That's for sure. But like I said, on to group coaching. I'm already late by 5 minutes. So until next time, remember, go out and be the person that you would want to meet. Love you guys. Don't remember, subscribe, pass it on to somebody. And don't forget to check out my private accountability groups. Linktree in bio. Bye. Let go. Asteroid of fear.